When I love squad members, I can't act cool. Hey, young, it's your beat. Nothing lasts forever, I don't got tattoos. I lost squad members, I can't act cool. I like my bitches short and thick and ain't gotta act rude. She won't treat me like I'm the rest, cause I ain't that dude. I seen some things as a child that changed my thoughts forever. Try to do right, I'm on their ass and I won't fucking let up. Hit from the side, bitch, don't be lazy, lift your fucking leg up. To all my niggas going through a struggle, keep your fucking head up. Anything you going through, I'm a witness, it won't last forever. Just stay down and hold your side, don't change up like the weather. If he around me, then he got a ruler, but he ain't trying to measure. I got it in here, me some weed to get my thoughts together. Hard in the summer, but my heart cold, so I got a rock sweller. We came in this roll alone, so we ain't gon' leave out together. I know I'm blessed, I know my worth, so I can never settle. You can't show yourself before you only time can tell you. Here, get one time to fuck up, then you can't go here. Whoa, dear, I got too many stuff to bring a pole here. No deal, I won't set my soul ain't high and go here. I won't school, I stay loyal to my niggas and my face stick to the cold here. It's a new 40 on my hood, the bitch to blow him. It's a different dope inside the blunt, we getting lows in. Smoking on some dope from cause the country got a joke in. Treat the bitch like a receiver, put the bitch emoji in. I'm drinking on some shit that change a movie, call it potion. Can't even hide the 30 in the clip, baby, poking. And up off them beam, we got some smoke and get it going. White girl playing with her, no Lindsay Lohan. My little cousin slipped up and lost a baby, she was 16. Ain't doing shit for free, I want 200 for a 16. Glock with a dick and 30 club with a red beam. She make it hard for me cause all that nigga sold a blank dream. Don't lose on thug behind them shit you saying that you ain't me. All my niggas slide, you know what's up, bitch, you can't play me. I see the picture clear, my life a movie like it's HD. I'm a 50K screens and I ain't got no post on say cheese. Light a little weapon when I up it, better say cheese. This life taught me some lessons, fuck the school, I own a degree. I'm just trying to take care of my people, how you hate me. When I got caught with that elite, the shit was crazy. Bitch. The trap baby shit don't do that.
Some lemon pepper. And some onion powder.
Why is the water soapy? What did you do? I said wash the fucking chicken. What is this?
What you mean? I'm washing it.
Taquan, why is there soap in the chicken? Tom, why is there soap in the chicken? Are you fucking retarded?
How are you supposed to wash the chicken?
Nigga, rinse it off with cold water. You not fucking put this soap in the fuck.
Hey, you didn't say that.
Bro, are you fucking retarded? Your mom cooked. You never watched. You done fucked my dinner up, bro. Like, this one, I'm like doing shit with you. I asked you to do one thing. I ain't say fucking soak the chicken up. Wash it like dishes. I said fucking wash it. You know what? I'm gonna whoop the fucking shit. Like, you fucking dumb. And you done fucked up. I'm gonna just turn all this shit off. You fucked up my whole fucking dinner.
You didn't
You shut. You were fucking irritated.
Okay, but you didn't tell me.
You know how much that fucking chicken costs, bro? You fucking.
Did she tell me like how to make? Bro, did she tell me? Y'all sit there and saw her say wash the chicken. She ain't say nothing. She know I never cooked before.
I'm done.
Hey, just give me a right quick.
No, bro.
Man, put me in the microwave. Throw away all the chicken, bro.
Boy, fuck that chicken. It's done. You done fucked it up.
But listen, you didn't tell me.
We don't have no other main course for the dinner or nothing.
Alright, you don't have to cuss me.
Damn, I don't give a fuck.
Bro, that was toxic, man.
Yeah, I felt so bad for little bro.
Yeah, Taquan had a rough day.
For real.
All right, so I want to thank everybody for joining us for the Get Hooked podcast, episode 29. Today we're going to be tackling male fragility. Is it a thing? We're going to talk about some of the causes, some of the effects, and we have some guys here who are going to be extremely candid, I hope. As always, week to week, this is your boy Hook.
Chrissy, building.
Hey, Chris, what do you think about it, man? How do you think today is gonna go?
Before that, I was interested in being educated and learning, but listen, I can see how the fragile male ego, especially being bruised, can turn into a fight. Because if that would have been my son, he would just told me that I'd have had to go over there.
Yeah, man, that was tough to watch. I'll tell you that much. But you know,
But
we
it was hard to see because black mothers, not just black mothers, but I know where I grew up in. That's how we talk to our kids sometimes.
it's a
That
difference between
talk,
your mom
that
and your
took me back. Like that made me think of, did I just tell you I need to go apologize? That you stirred up some stuff with that one.
But in a little bit, man, we're gonna find out how our panel feels about it. So we're gonna give them an opportunity to tell you who they are. Alex, go ahead and take it away.
First off, man, Hook, Chris, just want to appreciate y'all for inviting me to the show. This is real dope what y'all got going on. But rest of the world, what's good? I'm Alex from RealTalk.biz, which is a video-based blogging platform for the Black community, with the purpose of inspiring and empowering our next generation of kings and queens by creating a stage where you can educate via blogs, podcasts, like Get Hooked. So if knowledge is power, right? If you got power, we'll welcome you to come join the site. So once again, appreciate it, Hook, Chris, for joining the show.
Yes, sir.
Hey, welcome.
Heck yeah, what's going on, y'all? My name is Sean Davis. Sean with a C, so you can't forget it. That's a pop soul out here in these streets. I'm so happy that y'all had me. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Hook. This is one of my first podcast experiences. So I'm super excited to be here and to be candid. Like I said, I got my drink and I got my two-step. I'm ready to go.
All right, Jazz.
Next. All right. Hey, you guys. My name is Jasmine, but you guys can call me JJ. I work at a university by day. I'm a wig maker by night. My page is at Posh Paradise. If you guys want to give that a follow. And this is my first podcast experience. So I'm very excited to be here with you guys today. I got me a little wine as well, so we can keep things candid, like y'all said. So I'm excited.
Hey, everybody. My name is Janetta. I am from Sumter, South Carolina. I'm the founder of Nursing Back to Life Enrichment Center, where I empower women to know their purpose and children to help learn their purpose as well. And I'm ready too. I got a wine glass. It might not be wine.
She got a big glass.
Hey, she got a wine glass, but I bet ain't no wine in there.
Don't
Merc
worry about what's in it.
Uh-oh.
All right, man. I appreciate you guys for joining. I really do. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing cracking, man. So I'll go ahead and break the ice a little bit. So let me ask y'all, how do you define a fragile male ego? And feel free to jump in. You don't have to go in the order that you did the introduction. So get in where you fit in, man. Just how do you personally define the fragile male ego? Let's hear it.
I guess for me, I start. For me, it's when someone tries too hard to try to overthink the male stereotype and fear of looking too feminine in front of society. So trying to fit what you think society wants you to be as a man, and when you don't fit that, you get as sensitive about it. So that, for the most part, that's pretty much what I think about it is.
Yeah, I was just about to say something similar, just to piggyback off that. I think a fragile male ego is one that is ruled by a certain set of standards or rules that may be imaginary or arbitrary or just set in by culture that we define. So if we define what masculinity is, then we can kind of free these people from these bondages of these old tale signs of what it means to be a man or what it means to be strong or masculine and all those things.
Yeah, for sure. Like for me, it's just it's an ego that cannot exist naturally. And like a man who's afraid to just be organic out of fear of judgment or what other people might think of his persona.
I like that. I'm sorry, JJ, I think.
Yes, hi.
Yeah, I like that. I would agree as well. I think moving in a way for everybody, male or female, and what's natural for you should be more accepted instead of having like placement of what this should be like. So for me, it's the same thing. It's It's being able to like kind of break the cycle of what we think something should look like versus what's good for us, you know? So that's the same thing for me.
Male ego has a lot of different ways. So male fragility is the one that I kind of have been on since Hook brought the topic to me, because it's that you ever seen that meme? I use it a lot. It's the horse, a big old stallion, but he's tied to a plastic chair. And he doesn't realize the power versus that he has in him versus the chair. So the ego part to me is that line between them and that chair. That chair is, you could snatch that chair up, but that ego keeps you mentally bound to something you're more powerful than. So it's that moment, that what happened to you that caused you to have it. They tell you to be proud as a man, you know, to be this, to be that. And then in the same token, did somebody demasculate you and snatch that pride back, or make you feel different, that developed you to be a certain way? Because all of our experiences make us who we were. For example, that video we just saw, if he had an ego and his pride, it was gone by the time she finished. But that experience will carry him, where if he's with someone else and she yells, it's going to go different, because you're going to catch that. So that ego and that pride, that's a deep rooted emotion. That's almost like insecurities and other things. Those things are deep rooted. But they're taught.
Definitely. And all some very good points. And a couple of the things that you guys mentioned, I think Alex mentioned overcompensation, really trying to overcompensate, you know, for you want to meet society standards, but you also have that fear of what happens, or your I guess your reputation, if you fall short of what you feel society deems a real man. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And I think Sean made a really great point. It's going to be up to us to redefine, you know, the whole masculinity thing. We have these I'm sure we all grew up and, you know, it pretty much probably similarly. And we had these expectations of what a man is supposed to do. But as you know, things constantly evolve. So what that meant back then may not necessarily mean the same thing now. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So let me ask y'all, man. So what are some clear signs of a fragile ego?
Overcompensating.
Overcompensating, obviously, yeah.
Yes.
If you have to, and that's not just overcompensating with money, overcompensating with women.
Yeah.
You got to have a bunch of women. You got to have a bunch of money, or you got to act like you got a bunch of money. You got to have a bunch of shoes.
It's like you can tell who has that. Like you can tell who has a fragile ego, because they consistently need that validation from everybody but themselves. You know, they need everybody to pat them on the back and everybody to tell them how dope they are, how fine they are, how fly they are, how cool they are. And they can't find that within themselves to not need that external approval.
That's true.
And I think too, always trying to establish control, like especially over women, trying to control, you know, what they do, because that makes you comfortable.
You feel dominant. That dominant. It's a lot that goes into it. I mean, what are times? So let me ask you this 2-part question. One, a time that you've seen someone that you know you got an ego problem, or something happened to you. Like ego bleed. When someone has a heavy ego and a big ego, they scream, "Help me! Something happened to me." You can hear it, that is a silent cry that is loud. So knowing a time that you've seen it, but then on the same token, what contributes to that? Like, what are some life events, or what are some situations that contribute to a fragile male ego?
I think a lot of it stems from fear of being judged, like Alex said. A lot of it is the fear of being judged. I think for me, growing up in the South Carolina, and just being around a bunch of young men who look like me, who walk like me, who talk like me, and being in the locker rooms and hearing the conversations that you would hear somebody bragging about something that they probably made up and that never really happened, just to seem like the cool guy, because you recognize early on, from me anyway, I recognized early on that a lot of male ego is determined by the things that you have or the women that you have in your life, how cool you seem to be in front of everyone. And so when you can see somebody from a mile away kind of flexing and capping, like, you know damn well you ain't said that to who and you ain't did that to what. It's like, I think those, you can kind of tell from a mile away when somebody is capping in a different kind of direction. You're like, you didn't say that a few days, but when dude was in your face, you ain't said, what?
I think too, though, what Chris was saying when she watched the video, how we even speak to our children. So it's stemming from childhood traumas, you know, whether that's being in a household with an absent father, and so not really knowing how to own up and actually be a man. So you're just trying to imitate what you think, you know, a male should be, or how they should have control of a situation. I think that also contributes to, you know, to that ego being built up. Unfortunately, you know, but even for women, as we're supposed to be nurturers to our son, but even to our man, you know, that it gets slighted. So if we've grown up teaching our own children or speaking to them in such a way that's kind of like hard and harsh, that would lead to traumas as we get in relationships as well. That same, you know, that same way, instead of really being nurturing how we're supposed to be, would actually still carry on in relationships as well. So I think that would also contribute to it.
Life experiences, deaths, relationships, and relationships can go from significant other relationships. It can go from parental relationships. A lot builds it. And egos start to sound a whole lot like insecurities. That when women talk about insecurities, egos balance, but it's a different weight, because a man's ego and his pride is everything. You break that, old folks call it breaking somebody's spirit. You break that, you break him.
Right.
The way she broke him in that video, unacceptable. That's ridiculous. And then later, you know, you're hollering and hooping and crying about who he messing with and what he's doing. Probably somebody that got a nicer tone when she talked to him. I mean,
exactly.
Be realistic. But
so Chris, I got a question. What you just said. So do you think it's important for women to stroke a man's ego?
Okay, because that was a question we were wondering about before. This is my belief. We're support, not saviors. But on that same token, we as women require reassurance. I don't care if a million men tell me I'm pretty. If the man I love tell me, oh baby, all y'all, I don't need no likes. That's it. But it's the same thing for y'all. If you come in here, every woman in the world could be like, look at you. But when I gas you up, it has a different feel. So I don't say it's a stroke your ego, but it is everybody wants to be noticed and acknowledged. Just like we need reassurance, you do. I think stroking a man's ego gets that. I ain't about to stroke his ego. Good morning, beautiful. Hey, boo. Hey, handsome. Same thing. Look at you with your shirt. Look at you with that job. Do it, baby. Same thing. Gassing each other up in a relationship is important, just like it's gassing your kids up. I don't care about them stick figures sometime that's on this refrigerator.
Yeah,
because it make them feel good.
Right.
Everybody wants to feel good. So treating others like you want to be treated, yes, Alex, that's important to me.
Right. And I'll bring back real quick. I think it's less about a woman's responsibility to stroke a man's ego, and more about a partner's responsibility to fill each other's cup up and to pour into each other. You know what I mean? It's not a woman's responsibility to go over the table and tip your cup over either, but it's like y'all are to pour into each other and to build. So when those cups runneth over, Holy Grail.
Right. You guys, each of you made some very valid points, and just a couple things like, and we live in a society of double standards. Because men are expected to tell tell the woman, hey, you're beautiful, hey, you look good. And the thing is, like, men need to hear that as well. Now, what I will say though, maybe not every man, because it's all about your love language. Because with me, my love language is words of affirmation. So for you to tell me, hey, you look good today, or give me some type of compliment, that means the world to me. Whereas someone else, that may not be their love language. So I think it's more so, instead of focusing on gender, I think it's going to be vitally important that we make sure that we understand who we're in front of and exactly what we need to do to make that person feel good. Someone, I forget who, but someone also mentioned absent fathers. That's key. Because I was raised by a single mom. I had uncles and older cousins, got an older brother, and it's not the same as having a man in the house, having a father in the house. And I'm 44 years old, and I'm still learning how to be. Shut up. I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to be a man. There are things that I should have known early on, but I didn't have that. So, but it's it's luckily I was able to find a significant other that understands that that there are things that I don't know, things that I'm still learning. And but some women, they tend to hold that against the man because they're like, what, you're a man, you're expected to know these things, you're expected to do this as a man. But quite frankly, how can I do something that I have nothing I don't know about? And that's the perfect segue into my next question. My next question is how do women contribute to fragile egos?
We hard sometimes. We hard.
Yeah, we definitely are. I think because, the world is so tough on us already. So a lot of times we bring that tough love mentality back home because we want you to kind of be prepared for what you're going to experience when you go out into the real world, especially with, mothers and sons, particularly single mothers. Like I come from a single mother home as well. And I definitely watched the dynamic of her, trying to be the enforcer as well as the nurturer. And it's hard to kind of have that balance when you think, you don't want your son to go out into the world and be soft, or, you want him to be able to hold his own. So a lot of times you do kind of bring the hammer down a little more, which creates that toxic masculinity because it's like that son didn't really have room to develop emotionally. He was kind of forced to fill those shoes.
Emotional intelligence.
Yep. And a lot of times it shouldn't be his responsibility to automatically be the man of the house. He should be able to be a kid and kind of figure out who he is first before you kind of add those responsibilities that are a lot of times are just too heavy for a child to even really understand.
So a lot of times, and I said this before, I was wondering how we were going to kind of break it in, but a lot of us like to act like our adult relationships cause male egos to be fragile, or your adult experiences, when all actuality, your childhood plays a massive role. Because many times as women, when a man has done you wrong, you raise your son to be everything that man was not.
Mm-hmm.
But on that same token, you raise your daughters to be independent and not need. So you got a mom playing both mom and dad. So she's the up and the down. Here's the problem. There's no balance. There's no go to your daddy and leave me alone. There's no give me a moment to breathe. It's all you. So that attitude and that frustration, I keep going back to that video. I think that gave me PTSD. The way she acted, somebody acted like that with her over a mistake. They spazzed.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our stuff, how we act, I grew up in a single woman village, not a home, but a village.
Right.
Between death and breakups, by the time I got to the age where I was watching these women going, all right, what I'm supposed to do, it was women around me. So there's a lot of fuck it, I'll do it myself in me to the 10th power. There's a lot of, and that can demolish a man's ego. To the going to tell someone I need this from you, and then they don't do it in the time frame that you want it done. I'm so guilty. I'm so guilty. I am guilty. Ooh, my feet was on this floor. I stepped on them. It's bad. And then I do it because you didn't do it in that time frame. But that's the talk. That's a learned behavior because I'm not gonna let me down. Yeah. And I've been hearing about the letdown. So now you got these people who are trying to, well, let me do this for you. But that male ego gonna get shot because I'm gonna do it.
There you go.
And that's a biggie. We do hold a large value, but here's another part, like you said, with absent fathers. If I didn't have one in the house to show me what a man was supposed to do, when you come in this relationship, I don't know how to love you, just like you don't know how to love me. I know how to run a home. I know how to run a budget. I know how to raise these kids. I know how to do a whole lot of things. But when it comes to loving you and figuring out, I'm trying to get you to get, I require an explanation. You don't have an understanding. You can't tell me what I need to know to help you. Now we both aggravated.
Right. And Janetta, what about you? How do you think women contribute
now,
to
I'm sitting here, I'm loving this conversation because as a parent of a son, it makes you aware, right? And so when you become aware of a thing, then now you can make adjustments to ensure that you kind of, be more strategic in how you teach, because of course this can be an issue that leads to so many things in relationships, to I'm a DV survivor, and so when it comes to domestic violence and all of these things, having a sense of control because of this issue that we also can contribute to, it makes you more aware. So for me, I'm just like, I'm taking this all in. And I think what Chris was saying was so on point, but it also goes to the point of like, how do you maneuver in this thing to ensure that you're not a negative partaker of what they have had from their childhood? So what is it that I can do better? And that goes with having emotional intelligence in relationships and being able to identify what's what, right? And then actually like be able to, and that goes back to knowing the love language. So we got to identify those things. What is it that you like or don't like? What is it that, because I may love words of affirmation, but you may be one who I have to just spend some time with, so it's like identifying these things and being able to maneuver so that way that it can be something that you grow, in. To me, I don't feel that it's like a super negative thing if you can identify what it is and actually then start making adjustments. And I mean, we're born with the IQ, but this emotional intelligence thing is something that you can evolve in and you can actually learn along the way. So
I want to piggyback on that too.
Janetta, you hit a big point that I wanted to bring up today too, and it leads right into, it still ties in with all of this. Just like what leads to a fragile male ego, what are some of the effects of a male fragile ego? And by that I mean, you just mentioned about the DV, but the violence, in many of our communities, it is a lot of violence against Black men and with Black women. There's a lot of lashing out that goes wrong, failed relationships, absent parenting. It's so much bigger than, of course we look at the surface. What makes his ego fragile? How do you make him feel better? Giving him compliments. But what are the lasting effects? Failed relationships, failed parenting situations. Not saying that you are a failure, but because these things have happened, now it's a trail of tears. You're leaving this situation. What are some other effects of the ego from the guys that y'all have seen?
Resentment.
We'll make sure we touch on that. But Sean, you said you wanted to piggyback on something that Janetta was saying earlier, or
I did real quick. We all have said it once, and so I just wanted to break the door down and talk about emotional intelligence. I think one of the biggest contributing factors to toxic masculinity or fragile male egos is emotional intelligence. Oftentimes we, again, and I said this to Chris earlier, when I say we, I do mean Black people, because I ain't never been white, I've never been Asian, I've never Panamanian, I'm Black, so I'm speaking from my Black ass experience. And I think oftentimes we teach our sons and our boys and our young boys to have two emotions, and that's either you're okay or you're angry. And we cultivate that in them. So when you get into a relationship with a woman who is very emotionally intelligent and secure, and she says, "Hey babe, I'm here to support you. How can I help you?" And he's ready to shut down because he doesn't know how he needs to be helped. It's important for women to support, but it is not the woman's responsibility to do the emotional work for a man. It is not her responsibility to do his work. It is up to him to say, "Look, I need a moment. I don't know how I feel right now. I'm processing. If you could just give me a few, let's sit down and we can get through this together, because I need your help. I need to figure this out right now." But a lot of it just stems from the development of our young boys' emotions. Man up. Boys don't cry. Why are you sad? Oh, she broke up with you, fuck her. No, let's have a conversation. He's hurt. We're talking about contributing factors to male egos. We're looking to my left and to my right at my homeboys. Like, okay, if I say my heart is broke, she really did a number on me, and y'all looking at me like, just go fuck someone else. Let's have a conversation about how I feel. Because women have no problem sitting down and saying, "Look, when you said this, I felt this." We as men need to be able to look to our left and to our right, to our sons, our uncles, or whoever else, and say, "Hey, I can tell something ain't right. Something don't feel right because it ain't right. How can we cultivate a safe space for us?" And I think it starts with men, to be honest. I think it starts with us as men taking our arms around each other and saying, "Look, I can tell you're going through right now. I'm here for you, bro. What do you need?"
And Sean, to your point though, and I think that's the most difficult part. As men, we want to hold each other accountable, but we weren't taught that. We weren't taught how to have that conversation. We weren't taught, like you mentioned, if a girl breaks my heart, I'm in here crying, I'm bawling, you know, my homeboys, you know, they gonna want to go have a drink, you know, they want to get drunk, they want to, yeah, man, you'll go over these girls, you know, I mean, it's jump from one relationship to another, so we never really healed from that. So we haven't healed from what broke us. So now we going into another relationship broken. So that cycle is simply continuing. And like our Richard says, you know, men aren't taught allowed to have a spectrum of emotions. You know, we getting labeled for being human. Like we have emotions too. Men
That's
cry.
true.
You know, we do a lot of these things, but a lot of times, oftentimes, we aren't allowed to explore that side of us because they call us soft. They say we're being a pussy. They say all this stuff about us. So we aren't really taught to really deal with these emotions. So now I know, and I've never hit a woman in my life, so I can't understand that. But I know Janetta said she's a DV survivor. You know, who knows that it could have been a lot of things that led up to that particular situation, which I won't get into because that's our personal business. But there are a lot with all these pent up emotions. Like it's so many different things that can happen. There's so many different things, so many different ways it can go wrong.
And so many men are struggling and they don't know how. So many men are struggling with PTSD. They're struggling with anxiety. And they've never been given the tools or the resources to express themselves efficiently.
The only thing men were allowed to do, I feel like, to express their emotions is fights and the other F word.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's it. So you see it now as adults. Whenever they're emotional, that's why I feel like a lot of men cheat, because it's an emotional outlet to deal with their problems. It doesn't have anything to do with the woman, but they really don't know how to be vulnerable. And the only time they are vulnerable is most of the time in the bedroom.
Magic word.
It's the easy way.
It's that time where, like you're saying, JJ, when you feel like, if I'm not good at spades, that ain't my thing, I'm gonna go play Uno because I'm good at what I do. So it's kind of a situation of you too much. This is too, and I'm not saying it's an excuse, but it's a reality. A lot of times we don't. So women, if I break up with somebody and I call JJ and I call Janetta and I go, listen, it just went bad. They're gonna have you need to take time to grieve conversation. You get 4 days to get over it, and we talk about feelings and emotions and mistakes and all that. Like you said, guys would be like, well, she cheated, she a hoe, or she did this, or y'all broke up, she a hoe, fuck her. The problem is, how do you say fuck her when you loved her? So that's backwards. I loved her, I adored her, I gave my world to her, I wanted to marry her, and now you telling me to dismiss all that shit and go release with these spirits, these transformation of soul ties, to put on my frustration as somebody else's daughter. No.
Because again, that's what we're taught. That's how we're taught to get over it. Like get over it and move on. It's move on to the next one. We aren't taught to really deal with these emotions. That's why there's so many lingering effects, and that's why there's so much anger built up. There's so much emotion built up. We have not been properly taught to really deal with it. And Alex, let me ask you. So, and Chris's question, I know we kind of got away from it for a minute, but what are some of the lasting effects of a fragile male ego?
She spoke on two that I thought was the biggest one. Like one, failed relationships, that and absentee parentism. Those are the main two I see that comes out of both of them. A lot of relationships, they could have stuck it out if they'd have just, like what Sean was talking about, could have just had a second, just talk, got your feelings together, got your thoughts together, and actually talked out how you truly felt. But like Chris said, she's out, you know what, hurt my feelings, fuck that, I'm gone, fuck that girl, because you hurt my feelings, things of that nature. So I think that's the big one, and that kind of led to, of course, a lot of absentee parenting, and things of that nature. So, but I hate to play devil's advocate. I do have I'm
Do you really?
Anybody that know me know that I have a devil's advocate type of
always.
So I'm curious. I'm actually learning. That's why I've been quiet. I'm learning a lot from y'all. So a lot of y'all said at different low points. JJ, you said something earlier, like when you're teaching your kids, especially when you're son, you don't want them to be soft, and that's okay, right? Shouldn't you? I one day, hopefully God blesses me to be a father. Hopefully I can be that one day, and I hope to be a good father. But when that day comes, if it does come, I don't want my son to be soft. But is that me displaying a fragile ego because I don't want my future son
What
to be
does soft
soft?
mean?
Or
Let's
what
talk
does-
Yeah,
What does soft mean?
Is that negative? It
Yeah,
sounds
what does that mean to you, Alex?
To me, I don't. You said this, or you said it a little bit earlier. I don't. If you're a guy, you can cry. I don't want my son to be a crybaby. Is
What is
that?
crybaby?
How?
I don't.
How will that affect him though if he's a crybaby? Like, what will be the
And if
negative?
he cries twice in a week, is he a crybaby?
No, he cries every time. Every time
think,
something hurts
Alex,
his
the
feelings, or he don't get it the way he wants.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing is not the action of like cry, because we know that it's okay to cry. We know it's okay to be sad. Like, these are emotions. These are real feelings. Women, and it's not based on your gender. We all have emotions, right? So I think the thing is like knowing how to teach your child or teach a young man how to process emotions.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Like, how do you process these emotions?
Identify and process.
So, right. And like, how do you process that, And a lot of these things, I don't think that when you're feeling some type of way towards a situation or whatever experience, that you should just not talk about it or not acknowledge it for what it is. Some things you just have to let pass through you, and it just is what it is. But then there are times where you have to be open enough. Like, my son is only 11 years old, but I'm now divorced from their father, and he's getting older, so he's understanding like the absent parent. He's starting to see it. Well, that's going to trigger certain things to start happening within my home, and it's like, hold on, I ain't ready. I can't deal with this all by myself. Like, I'm not a guy. I don't know. So the next step for me, because you have emotions, I'm seeing like anger, I'm seeing frustrations, I'm seeing sadness. I ain't gonna tell you to man up and go take out the trash. I'm gonna tell you, all right, what's going on? Like, how are you feeling? And so what we had to do, and I mean, even last year was a hard year for everybody, right? But like, what we had to do is start counseling. So not neglecting the thing that the Black people have said we can't do for a man. Like, yes, you can go to counseling by your damn self. It don't have to be couple counseling. You can go by yourself, so you can learn the triggers. You can learn the things that from your past that now make you feel like you can't express, or like you said, you go out here and have sex to get over it. That's not getting over it, because then now you have all of these spiritual connections, and now things are spiraling out of control, not only for yourself but the other person who you're sleeping with. So it's so much to it. But I think opening that conversation and being transparent enough to say, you have real feelings, you have real emotions. Let's figure out how we can let these things pass through us, and we can acknowledge them. And counseling and therapy is one of the ways.
Right. And I think that
matter, especially counseling. We are the people, Black men, women, and God, we're guilty.
Grandmothers, mothers, fathers.
I believe that the Lord Jesus, I'm telling you, I'm a full believer, but pray about it is a biggie. But it's hard to pray about fixing something we don't really understand ourselves. I don't, like you said, that pent up anger. If I've been yelled at all my life, I'm yelling at people, but I'm lashing out at y'all from what I dealt with before. You're catching somebody else's something, but that therapy is a big one. Oh God, that's a big one.
Therapy allows you to analyze your life experiences and remove a lot of the judgment. It would be easy for me to judge. You said talk about PTSD from that video. It'd be easy for me to judge my mama for going in, but only thing she asked me to do was take the damn chicken out the freezer. Now, if I couldn't get my ass up and take the chicken out the freezer, I feel like we need to go in a little bit. But I can watch it feel like that, and she did too. I know your mom, and be taken back to an ungodly place. So I think a lot of it is releasing the judgment. We talk about being soft and managing emotions, releasing the judgment of what we think a man is supposed to be, or what a woman is supposed to be, for that matter. Like y'all said earlier, and just letting people be.
Right. And I'll make this statement, and it's going to be the perfect segue into the next question, because this sounds great, right? It sounds easy to sit here and say, deal with your emotions. It's okay to cry, but we weren't raised that way. I think that I think now parents are more progressive. Like, we're the parents now, so we understand these things now. But when we were coming up, like, it didn't matter what you were crying about. You could be crying about anything. You could fall in and scrape your knee and start crying. Boy, stop crying. You know what I'm saying? And somebody can hurt your feelings. Boy, be a man. So we're taught right then that we can't cry. So it's kind of hard to decondition that. If we've been taught that our whole lives, we can't just turn the switch on and off. that's why I think therapy is so important, because I sought therapy. I had to seek therapy. And I was to tell you, because like I had a quick temper. I didn't know why, but like you couldn't say anything to me without me getting mad. But that was simply because I never learned how to deal with my emotions. So everything was a trigger. You can be saying something jokingly to me, but I took it personally, like it was a personal attack. But it wasn't until I sought therapy that I understood all the past traumas I've been through, insecurities I had within myself, that I never got a chance to really compartmentalize.
Is that the opposite of being soft?
Right. Say again?
Is that the opposite of being soft? Having a quick temper? I see this comment that typically refers to men that don't know how to manage and everything is taken to level 10 when it's really a 4. So it's being quick temper the opposite?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when people, when they say stop being soft, that means stand up for yourself, you know, and stuff like that. So the natural reaction is to be aggressive. Hey, I'm a man, you know, you're not going to talk to me any kind of way. When in actuality, all you got to do is have a conversation. Like it can be a complete misunderstanding, and I think that's why there's so much shooting and all this unnecessary violence. We just aren't taught. The first thing niggas want to do now when they get in an argument with somebody, you step on my shoe, let me get my gun. You know, now I ain't saying my bad. I apologize. I stepped on your shoe. I'm just, you know, it wasn't my fault. But when you're barking at each other, it takes it to a whole nother level.
So see, that's one of the things that we didn't mention as what are some of the effects of male ego? Is there's a whole lot of obituaries and a whole lot of graves that are all because of egos, and we didn't talk about that. You said something, Alex, and I wanted to go back to it before, and then JJ had something she was about to say. You said, and I was talking about this because of my male fragility, the cultural standards. You said you hope that you're able to be a good dad. What's a good dad?
That's a good point. Can I just say I'm not a dad yet, so I don't know? That's an easy answer.
Which is a perfect question to ask for you right now. What's a good dad?
Well, I'm gonna use my dad as an example. I think my dad was a good example, and I use him as my role model to how I should be a good dad. Is one, he showed what it is to be a husband, what it is to continuously love your wife, and what it is to support her in everything that she do, even when she gets on your last nerve. I've seen it personally, but he still loved her through and through, still supported her, gave her that love day in and day out. Never ran from any situation. Always put himself in those talks where they had to talk it out. Sometimes, like, I ain't gonna lie, did I sit at the end of the hallway and listen to what they was talking about? Maybe. I'm not gonna say that. But that's one. So that's why it was such a huge accomplishment for me to become married, but not just married, but married to, I think, the right person. So wife, brownie points. Second, my dad was always encouraging. He always encouraged every single thing that I did, even though I know for a fact he didn't like all of my choices. There was I probably made a lot of bad choices, and so most of my family probably think no, because I was a pedestal kid. But I made a lot of bad choices, but still he supported them, and every time he never made me feel like I was dumb or stupid for those things. He came in and talked to me, tried to find out why I did that. Maybe say this is probably a better way, and probably thought about, oh, now you gotta learn from your mistakes. And then three, outside of the household, I feel like he was a role model to other people. He not only is a father to me, but he was a father to other different people. He was an educator. So I feel like he taught how to be a strong Black man, just period, to other people through expertise, through role model, through example. So those are the three things that I kind of look at seeing at my dad, and that's only, like Sean said earlier, I only had one dad. It's the only dad I got.
Yeah.
So,
but you had a very great example. Growing up, my grandfather was the male example we had, and he was a provider and protector. The money came in, and if anybody tried to mess with y'all, they was gonna catch it, and that's about it.
Right.
He's not coming to you and asking you what you're sad for today. He wasn't that type. He was a provider and protector, and so many times that's why I asked that, because our idea of a good father is going to determine a whole lot. Because if you feel like you're not keeping up with whatever in your mind is a good parent, then you're gonna feel like you're less than, which is also an ego thing. Is I don't feel like I'm enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not being enough. I'm not trying enough. Being emotionally available. You sound like your father was very emotionally available. He was engaged. It wasn't he paid the bills and you saw him come and go, and then he showed up at weddings and birthdays. You know, he was there. That makes a massive difference. Even in you being young and having your mistakes, you had someone talk you through them. There are a lot of people who have dads present now or living, I mean, I say present, living, that they cannot go to when they make those mistakes. It's a boy, get your shit together. Boy, stop effing up. Listen, I bought this, but when I was a man, I bought my own. You need to get yourself together and do the same thing. That's when credit issues. It's just a lot that trails off of that toxic masculinity that came from that generation before us and before them. And it's been that way. It's a narrative changing time.
Right. It becomes our responsibility, I think, to cultivate a new definition of masculinity and femininity, for that matter. That's maybe next week. Toxic femininity. It's a whole conversation. You know what I mean? I'm not even gonna give it to the guys. It's like, I think that there's a conversation to be had about how we not only carry ourselves, but then how we love each other moving forward.
Right. And on the, no, go ahead, Jess.
Oh, no, I was going to say, kind of going off your question, Chris, about what's a good dad or even a good parent is also about being patient. I feel like a lot of times we as Black people, we don't have no patience. We don't like wait and we need things to happen like this because we have so much outside anxiety that forces us to always be on go. So a lot of times we don't have grace with each other, or we're not taking that time to slow down and analyze, you know, other people's feelings. Just like what Janetta was talking about, the importance of therapy. It's not only about understanding our emotions, it's about understanding other people's emotions and how can we respond to those emotions in a way that lets you know, hey, I understand you, I hear you, how can I support you and validate what it is that you're feeling.
Right. And on the opposite end of what Alex was talking about, he had this near perfect example of a great father. Because, and I said earlier, Alex and I are first cousins, so I got to witness that firsthand. I know his dad's a great man. Now, his dad showed him the example of what a father should be. Mine, on the other hand, I didn't have that example. So I knew what kind of father I didn't want to be based on the experiences with mine. And, you know, I'm not, I don't consider myself, like, I hate it when people say you're a really great dad. It's like, to me, it bothers me simply because, like, I feel that what I learned over the years, man, is like, it doesn't take a whole hell of a lot to be a great dad. It really doesn't. It's be there, be supportive, be accountable. And when I look at myself and with my daughter, when I look at the way Alex was raised with his dad, I see firsthand that it doesn't, you know, and I that's another reason I sought therapy, because I was angry. I didn't realize how angry I was at my dad. I was angry primarily because he was a phenomenal father to my sister, my half sister. He was a great father to her, but to me, not so much. And I didn't realize how much that affected me. Like, I wasn't good enough. Like, why are, you know, I'm just here. Like, I'm not asking you for anything. I just want some of your time. Either one, it's, the fact is like, because I know the type of man that I just did not want to mirror anything or be even remotely close to the relationship I had with my dad growing up, because it was hurtful. But I didn't realize that until when I sought therapy. So when I sat down and I talked about it, me and my mom never talked about it. We should have. We should have talked about it so she can know how it was affecting me. Her thing was, fuck your daddy. I'm doing it right here. You know, you don't need
that nigga. Yeah.
Which was cool. I didn't need him, but the thing is, though, is like I needed to have that conversation. I needed that outlet. I needed to hear that I was good enough, and that whatever my dad's transgressions were, that ultimately didn't affect me. But I do want to close with one question, guys. I know we're about 10 minutes away here, so I do want to ask one more question, and this comes from the accountability aspect. So how do we as men? So I want to hear from the men and the women. How do we help men cultivate their masculinity? Like, how do we? Because Sean mentioned redefining that. how do we as men hold each other accountable, even though we weren't raised to really show our emotions? How do we break that cycle?
Ask questions.
Yeah.
If you text me, Hook, and I say, how you doing? And your message to me is, what's wrong? Because we catch cues. If JJ got on here and she was like, y'all, I'm here, but I'm not. Sidebar, what's wrong? Don't, women, we nosy, we call it nagging, we pry, but we ask questions. Before we got on here today, I talked to quite a few guys and just asked. And what I've learned is that men don't ask each other questions. What's wrong with you? And nigga, you all right? Get yourself together. Let's keep going. Ask, what's wrong? Why do you feel that way? Why are you angry? Why do you pop off all the time? Why don't you like this person? Why you keep changing females? Why you don't want to go see your kids?
Yeah.
Hold your partners accountable. Why? What's wrong? I don't know is an acceptable answer.
That's a good point, Chris, and that goes to, like, in the book Emotional Intelligence. I had a male friend show me this like a couple years ago, where the conversation is the relationship, and keeping that conversation going. Talking about the things that matter, that helps heal, and it helps in so many different ways. So yes, have the conversations and keep those and then keep them going, because once the conversation is over in that moment, there may be something else that triggers a similar or same, reaction to whatever it may be. And so just to keep it going, because we all are evolving, we're all trying to grow, and not just shut down, but I know this is definitely a male question, so I'm ready to hear from you guys.
I think a big piece of it is fear, right? Men are afraid to be vulnerable. Men are afraid to open up for fear of being judged, criticized, called soft. The moment a man we all have hearts and we all have sleeves, but God forbid a man put his heart on his sleeve, you know what I mean? And so I think men have to be comfortable, and boys, we have to teach our boys to be comfortable being vulnerable, teach them the difference between vulnerability and what we perceive to be as soft. Teach them that it's okay not only to have emotions, not only to identify the emotions, but to express them. I think someone in the comments earlier said it, when you repress all your emotions and when you just pray it out and you never let it out, you're never going to be able to move forward in a healthy space as a healthy masculine man, or whatever the case may be, without that vulnerability, without knowing that it's okay not to be okay.
Absolutely.
That's all. Real talk. I agree with Mr. Pop Soul. You like that shout out, right? Yep. Basically everything he said, and a lot of things he was spitting, y'all said, I can even hold myself accountable to a lot of it. You're right. I don't like to feel vulnerable. I think most people can think it's for me. I don't have no problem talking about things, but at the same time, I don't like the feeling of it. I don't. I'll be the first one to say I don't like it. So anytime I can avoid it, I will. But at the same time, I do know that there's times where, and I've even started this. Me and Hook started this a while. Every time, like Chris, you said it. Ask questions. Hook, how you doing? Checkups. Call up on your homie, man. You talk to you. I ain't heard from you. I said, I heard you deactivating social media for a while. You straight? You good? So and I'm starting to get better at that. So it's just something I think, like Mr. Pop Soul said earlier, it was something that we're going to have to change ourselves. I don't have the answer really to it, but I just know I got to, one, I guess, feel comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially with holding people accountable, like especially the people closest to me. So it's not from a sense of I'm trying to get at you, I'm trying to make you look bad. I'm trying to, because I care for you, bro. So and I want to know how you're doing. Let's see how I can help.
That safe place is huge. That safe place. I know one of the comments that we had pop up said, call people out.
Yes.
Call them out, but there's a way to call people out. Right. If Hook is sitting here right now, and I'm not saying that you did this, because we've already discovered you were a good dad, you had a good family, your uncle was great, we got it. But if Hook hadn't seen his daughter in 2 years, it ain't my job to be like, hey, what the fuck wrong with you? You ain't seen that baby in 2 years. Because he's internally, he's probably already battling that. He feels terrible about it. So the question is, what's wrong? What keeps you from there? What is bothering you? What's hurting you?
Asking the right questions.
Right.
What hurts you? It's not so much as you trifling, you should do better, you ain't no good, what's wrong? Because there's something that did that. If you have a homeboy that deactivated that page, come on, let me talk to you. What's wrong? Absolutely. Because deactivation of a social media is a detox or a shutdown.
Also, two ladies though, and not to call y'all out, but if you're asking me what's wrong, and I say I can't talk about it right now, I need you to be good with that, babe. I need you to hear me. I need you to be able to respect the fact that, look, I want to have this conversation with you, but in the state of mind that I'm in right now, it's very difficult for me because, like you said, patience goes out the window. We're going to talk about this tonight. We're going to talk about this right now.
I learned that this last year, that's a bad response to force someone to talk. That is a relationship and ego killer. Talk to me now. Then you come out and lash out at me now. Now I'm mad that you cussed me out right now. Now we have a lasting issue. I don't know is an acceptable answer.
Absolutely. And Jazz, what about you? How do you think men can hold each other accountable?
I think kind of like what Chris was saying, is create that safe space to give people room to be okay with being honest and being just accepting of other people's feelings, validating someone's feelings and emotions, not projecting so much. When people talk, a lot of times I feel like we project based off what we've been through. So I think just learning how to listen and learning how to support each other and accept each other for who they are, where they are.
Where they are, yes.
Where they are. We've all failed. You're going to have bad relationships that taught you. It's 5 people that might tell you she was terrible, and then it's one that might say she's amazing. Well, I had training. You got to be okay with your mistakes. Own that. You might have told somebody, we got to talk right now. But then next time, don't do that. Own that. And be okay with who you are.
Forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself.
Forgiveness.
That's a key. Yeah. And to Alex's point, because I did a podcast a couple years ago about my bout with depression and me seeking therapy. He actually went and watched the entire episode, like after it aired, and then he called and we talked about it. You know what I'm saying? And that it kind of took me back. For one, he's my little cousin, and I'm like, dude, what's up? But it gave me some insight that we need to have that conversation. We have to do that. When I deactivated my page a few months ago, he called me up and I saw you deactivated your page. Like, you good? What's going on? I'm like, yeah, I'm just detoxing. So, but we need to do more of that. When we see somebody if we're worried, we need to reach out because you never even know. Because mental illness is real, suicide is real, all these things are out there. So you need to make sure that people know that they have somebody they can really rely upon. And before we get out of here, man, I want to go around the panel and I want you guys to give a screenshot, a takeaway that you want the audience to have. So Janelle, we'll go ahead and start with you.
First up, okay. So I would definitely say, especially to the ladies who are watching this and have listened to this, for us, again, just moving in grace, moving in love when dealing with men, knowing that we all have had experiences, we've all had different things that have somehow cultivated us into being the way that we are. So having like a sense of grace, not being so hard on men, thinking that they have to have this certain expectation that they have to meet, but they're human too, just like us, and moving in that space of just grace and allowing sometimes that humbling thing that we need to carry, like we need to carry it. It's cool to be independent. I'm all for women empowerment and for women being able to hold their own, but as nurturers and as emotional beings, we also have to understand that we don't have to always be so hard either. We can soften up and be humble, and ultimately like help guide these men into making sure that they're the persons who they need to be in relationships, so we can have lasting, long, healthy relationships. So that's what I would have.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sean, what you got?
I want to do a quick little PSA to all of the young boys watching, all of the young men that are watching that feel like they don't have anybody to talk to, that they feel like people haven't listened when they did open up and try to talk. Hit me up. We're right here, Mr. Pop Soul, and it's not a plug for me by any means, because I've been that young kid that needed somebody to talk to, that needed a man to show me the way, to wrap his arms around me and say, it's okay, don't man up, let it out, and then we can move forward. So do that for me, call me, beat me. If you want to reach me, I am here, and we're going to have a party. Turn up.
All right, Kim Possible. All right, JJ, you on deck.
All right. I guess a takeaway I'll say for the fellas is I'm gonna say hug your brothers more.
Mm-hmm.
Start with that physical aspect that, lets them know it's okay, to be vulnerable. It's okay to express your love, to express your emotions. And I think sometimes that can kind of start off with a hug. So I'm gonna say hug your brothers more. Don't be afraid to show, hey, I care about you and I got you.
All right.
Posh Paradise.
Alex.
All right, real talk. I'm gonna talk to the man in the mirror on this one. So I know I got to speak on my own experience sometimes. So, bro, stop giving a shit about how manly people think you are. Define manliness through what you do and not through society's mindset. And that's what I got from this. Real
Hell
talk.
yeah.
All right, for sure. All right, Chris, what you got?
Ooh, child. It comes a point in everybody's life where you have to own who you are and you have to own your healing. And it might not look like what everybody has taught you it should. Be okay with what it takes for you to be okay. If at the moment you're angry, deal with that anger. If at the moment you're hurt, deal with that hurt. Find a safe place. I don't care if it's a brother, sister, cousin, homegirl, significant other, aunt, uncle, parent, whoever. Find a safe place that you can say, I'm about to have a moment and have it. And let that out, because holding it in doesn't do anything but hurt you and those that love you that can't understand you. So the egos have caused a lot of obituaries. It is definitely time for us to change the narrative.
Yes.
And this was great, man. And all I got to say really is, and specifically to the women in the group, only because, it's not always, as men, we aren't always taught to internalize our feelings or speak on it, but investing in man, because the fact is men do dope shit when they feel people believe in them, if they feel that you are in their corner, you'd be surprised. And I'm speaking as a man, you'd be surprised at what men accomplish. Simply getting that pat on the back, knowing you got somebody in your corner that supports you, it makes you go out there and want to be great. So invest in your man. And in all honesty, if you're not talking to your man, if you're not investing in your man, if you're not emotionally available, somebody else will be. So there's no excuse. That's not saying there's any excuse for cheating. But if you, and this goes for men and women, if you with that person, be with that person. Be a team. Be a championship winner team. That's what you have to be. And again, this was a great conversation, man. Like it
was.
I feel better just by having it.
You had me nervous for a moment. You talking about women? Let me tell you something. I had to ease back and wait. I was about to check your ego was.
I know.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah.
You reap what you sow, and if you sow into someone who you have a partnership with, then you're going to reap the harvest of a happy, healthy relationship with a happy, healthy person. So I can agree with you on that one.
For once, we agree. That's a miracle.
All the fellas, real quick, and I'm gonna shut it off. Real quick, fellas. When your lady asks you to wash the chicken, right? This is what you do. You get a bowl,
Okay.
right? But don't use Dawn. Don't use Dawn or Tide.
Not use soap. Don't use no.
This is okay.
Rank it out.
This is when it's okay.
Rank it out.
Now, like we say in the country, just rinse it off.
Just rinse it off.
Hey, Chris, what we talking about next week?
Ooh. I liked what you talked about with the labels. Of course, February the 4th, we're definitely going with Money Mondays again. So February 1st, every first Monday, we do our Money Making Mondays. But next week, labels. Why? Because we too old for labels. You get too old for that. You ain't a hoe. You ain't a slut. If you choose to be who you with, that gay, whatever you want to, stop calling people what they are. They are who they are, and they are in their own skin and minding their business. You want to talk about labels? Labels are what demasculate men and what cause insecurities in women. My business.
Hello. I'll drink to that.
Look, I'll finish up mine to that too.
And on that note,
Real talk.
Like when I'm man, it costs $0 to mind your own.
Mind your damn business.
you might even get paid.
Right. Yeah, man, this was a phenomenal show, man. I really appreciate you guys' input. Janetta, JJ, Alex, Sean, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
We
Chris,
appreciate
I appreciate you. And this was great, man. And we'll see y'all again next week. Thank you guys.
Good night.
Wakanda forever.
Say Wakanda forever.
Period.
I'll put you on that.